We are back for revenge after week one with week two under center, best bets. Week two's on the horizon. We're excited to give you our best bets for each game. Hopefully, stack up a couple more winners than we did last week. We'll break it down for you. If you didn't check out our week one recap video, it's a great video that Jack and I did, kind of going through each game, especially giving the box scores and analysis and much more. So definitely check it out. Jack, how are we doing today?
Doing good. Excited, like you said, to get some revenge on week one. Hopefully, give you guys some good bets this week. And yeah, if you listened to our podcast earlier this week, we talked a little bit about what we like, what we didn't like, so you can kind of resume some start sits, but always reach out and happy to give our opinion on your specific situation as well.
Yeah, we're pumped. Week one's always the toughest week to bet on. Not an excuse. We're going to keep growing and be better every week. And we're going to print some money for you guys and hopefully have, fun doing it. So going into week two, the first game, we're going to start with the biggest spread here. Baltimore and Cleveland in Baltimore. Baltimore's laying 11.5, and it didn't seem like we were too hesitant about taking the Ravens here, given how angry they probably will be after week one and the soft matchup with the Browns. Jack, what do we got?
Yeah, like you said, the combination of that tough week one loss against the Bills. You see the Ravens coming out here and not really hitting the brake too much. They're going to go full steam ahead on these Browns. I think it's going to be a big game for the Ravens, like a big win there. I'm picking them as my pick in this week's survival pool. I think it's a safe pick. I feel comfortable with it. I'm willing to use the Ravens, one of the best teams in the league this week, to kind of just get through this early hump here. And then I think they're going to win by a lot, so I have them winning by over the 11.5 spread. And then for my prop for this game, I like Dylan Sampson to go over the receptions line. We're still waiting on the specific line because of the running back situation there with Judkins and seeing if he's playing. I think that's probably the hold up there. But either way, last week we got 8 receptions from Dylan Sampson. So I think, especially with the game script I'm projecting, I think Dylan Sampson is gonna be able to get the over on whatever the reception line is.
Yeah.
Zach, how about you?
I like it. He had obviously a ton of receptions in week one. My pick here, one of my favorite picks this weekend. I don't understand why the line is so high. I understand the Browns are going to be trailing in this game. Joe Flacco under 250.5 passing yards. If he didn't get in at 250.5, I think the line kind of trickled down here to 247.5 as I'm looking at it. But the Ravens gave up an astounding 396 passing yards to Josh Allen week one. And this defense is too good to give up another 250-plus passing yard game, especially the downgrade in offense, how angry they are. They spent this week shoring up the secondary, making sure they're not giving up big plays, making sure they're tackling. And I don't think the Browns have the star power that the Bills did, and obviously the quarterback drop off between Josh Allen and Joe Flacco. So I think this line is way too high here. I think Flacco is the fine quarterback for the Browns, but to be facing a defense like Baltimore, to be facing a team like Baltimore that's one of, if not the best teams in the AFC, I will be taking an under on Joe Flacco when the line is 250 yards passing all day, every day. One of my favorite picks this week.
Nice, yeah. I like to see Joe Flacco sometimes has these games where he gets up to those 300-yard markers, so I'm not so sure about that, but I see your logic there, and I'm supporting it. I'm gonna let you go full steam ahead there. You ready to move on to the Rams Titans? So the Rams Titans line, the Rams are 5.5 road favorite. I got the Rams, you got the Titans. For me, this really comes down to what I think of the Titans right now. They still got a rookie quarterback in there. The Rams had a nice showing against the Texans in week one. The defense looked really good. I also like that they have a pretty balanced attack on the offensive side. Meanwhile, I think Tennessee's going to take a few games to really figure things out here. And then for my prop, I like Kyren Williams to have the most rushing yards in the game, which is an interesting line there. It's at, I think, minus 150. But it's really a 1v1 battle with Tony Pollard there. Maybe Matthew Stafford will come in and get 100 yards or something like that. But I think based on what we saw last week from the Titans defense and the game script I project, I think that Kyren will have a lot of opportunities there. We saw that they were kind of vulnerable with RJ Harvey having that 50-yard carry, and then J.K. Dobbins had a fine game as well. So I think all that's going to really be funneled into Kyren Williams, and he'll be able to beat out Pollard and get you that prop there. Zach, what do you like in this game?
Yeah, I like that. Like you said, I think it's pretty much a one-on-one battle between Kyron and Tony Pollard. So whoever's the more efficient runner in this game, in that game between those two, will be the leading rusher. So I like the Kyron Williams bet. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I am expecting a huge Devontae Adams week 2. He had 4 catches for 51 yards in week 1, was shadowed by Derek Stingley for most of that game. That won't be the case here against Tennessee. I like Devontae Adams over 5.5 receptions at plus money. I think Stafford's going to look for him a bit more in this game, and I like the value at plus money there. I also like, I think his line's around 57, 58 pass receiving yards. I like that as well, but I'm going to submit here Devontae Adams over 5.5 catches, but you can't go wrong either way. I see both hitting. I see 6 plus catches for Adams here for 60 plus yards. I don't think Tennessee secondary is necessarily that good. I also think Devontae Adams is going to have a nice week here in week 2 as he builds his connection with Matthew Stafford.
What was your thinking on the Tennessee there? Do you think they're going to cover the 5.5? Do you think it's that they're at home? Why do you go Tennessee?
I think I'm expecting a close game, kind of how the Rams played Houston. So I'm going to take Tennessee in the points here, but not a game I'm really rushing to pick a side on. I really like this Devontae Adams prop. I'm probably going to just stick with that. But if I had to pick a side, I do have Tennessee here, plus the points until the Rams prove that they can really put out an opponent. I'm going to take these points here for the home team. Tennessee looked decent against the Broncos. They didn't, with the rookie quarterback going there, only throwing for 100 yards. The defense picked off Bo Nix twice. So we'll see. I'll take the points here.
But yeah, I think the main takeaway for me was like the Tennessee defense last week looked decent against the pass against Bo Nix, and then the run game was really where they were able to show and beat Tennessee last week. So that was my thing with Kyron Williams, but I do like Devontae and Puka to have a big game as well. Overall, I think this is going to be a blowout. So we'll see. The next one, we got Chicago against Detroit back at home, trying to get revenge on what we saw last week with the Packers, a little blowout there. Both teams are trying to avoid going 0-2 here after losing their division rivals. So that's kind of puts you in a really bad spot if you go 0-2, losing both your 2 divisional games to start off the season. We both had Detroit. I think it's hard to not see Detroit coming out, scoring a lot of touchdowns like we did last year. And we saw the Packers defense this past Thursday against the Commanders looked really strong there. It seems like Detroit's due to do something big this game. Also like David Montgomery to get a touchdown this game. He has, in all of his time in Detroit, never had back-to-back games without a touchdown. I think that's the correct stat there. No, he wasn't in the end zone last week. He had 11 carries. He's still getting a decent amount of work there compared to Gibbs, even though it was a little bit of blowout. Maybe that had a little bit of a factor there. But I think Montgomery is going to get some goal line work. How about you, Zach?
I like it. I think that's a pretty unique stat. I didn't know. He didn't score last week. Hasn't had back-to-back games without a touchdown. Playing his former team here in the Chicago Bears. Seems like everything's pointing in that direction that they're going to get Montgomery in. And I like the bet there. I'm also on the Lions. The Bears have still a lot of issues that they showed playing on Monday night against Minnesota, blowing that game. They had flashes, but Caleb Williams needs to be a lot more efficient, and he needs to build a better rapport here with Ben Johnson in week 2 for them to even have a chance in this game. And they need to convert and execute down the stretch on big, crucial third and longs that they were just not. They took way too many penalties. This offensive line for Chicago has the most false starts. I have to look up the stat after. I mean, they fucking jump every time he says, like every time one of them is fucking launching back, like Micah Parsons is running at them on the edge. They take way too many penalties. I think they had over 130 yards. That's probably more yards than Caleb Williams had at that point passing. It's crazy. I'm going to take Jahmyr Gibbs 100+ scrimmage yards here. I think that their Lions offense is going to wake up a bit. I know that we were high on them week 1, and this Packers defense is just a lot better. I mean, I knew they were going to be good, but they were a lot better, and I'm learning than I thought they would be, especially with these 2 edge rushers now. So we got to just keep that in mind betting against the Packers going forward. But I like Gibbs to break one here. I think the run game is going to get back to normal with Gibbs Montgomery really complementing each other. Gibbs getting a lot of the yards. I like Montgomery to get in. So yeah, let's roll the dice with Gibbs here on the yards. He had really inefficient receiving game, 10 catches for 30. I think it's the fewest amount of yards on that many receptions. So I'm looking for this yards number to increase here. I'll take the value. Yeah, but we can move on there.
Do you know where the Coliseum is?
It's somewhere in Italy. It's a city. I can't forget.
So it
I
is
feel like I
Rome.
asked you this last
And I
time.
cannot believe that Roma Dunze is not in your line there for your favorite prop. I was expecting every week we're gonna get a Roma Dunze prop from you.
I think like I don't want to exhaust it. It didn't hit in week one. He did produce fantasy wise though with 16 fantasy points in PPR and a touchdown, 9 targets. That's a good sign. But I don't want to exhaust everyone with the same pick over and over. But if you have Roma Dunze on your fantasy team, listen to me now. Every week he's playing, I'm never going to be opposed to him being a flex option. He's in my flex this week. I'm excited for him to get another 9 targets here against the Lions. Hopefully some more yards and another touchdown. So let's keep the Rome train going. Let's get this yards number up. But the targets are there. Caleb's looking for him. The snap count is there. So we're we're on this wide receiver one trajectory, and this DJ Moore is just in our way, Jack. And we're slowly knocking him down a little bit. He's banged up, got a little bit of an injury, so we'll see here in week 2.
Yeah, we might get something similar to what we got with the Packers last week or the last couple of weeks where the ball spread around a lot. The Bears got a lot of options there, but Rome did have a nice week 1 in terms of like outlook for the rest of the season and how much he was targeted and how much Caleb Williams was looking his way. So like you, I think he's a fine flex option this week, but I still need a little bit before I get to your outlook for the season with Rome. Maybe when I visit the Coliseum on my holiday, I'll be able to see the light and
Rome's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful city.
Beautiful city, yeah.
All right, what we got next?
Next, we got the Buffalo Bills against the Jets. This is a divisional matchup. The Bills are road favorites, 6.5 road favorites. We both have the Bills coming out here and having a big win, getting over that 6.5 line. I think that what we saw last week, it's hard to ignore how good the Bills are going to be. The offense is really good. The Jets came back last week and surprised us a little bit, but we still saw the same old Jets, right? So it's still hard to trust that the Jets are going to do anything good this year. The Bills are just a really good team, and it's hard to bet against them in any capacity. This was a tough line for me because I think the divisional matchup, Jets being 0-1, they're going to come out firing, but I do still like the Bills there. And in terms of my prop, I like Garrett Wilson over 59.5 receiving yards. It is a high line. We saw Garrett Wilson get a ton of work last week near that 100-yard mark. I think, again, the Jets are going to be down. They're going to need to keep up with the Bills. That's going to be a tough task for any team all year is keeping up with the Bills. We saw the Ravens couldn't really keep up with them in the fourth quarter there. So I expect a lot of passing volume. Even if the Jets have 100 yards passing this game, I expect 60 yards to go to Garrett Wilson. So I'm feeling good about that prop. Zach, where are you at in this game?
Yeah, I share the mindset of the Jets trailing in this game. I do think the Garrett Wilson number is high per se, but if Zay Flowers can go for 143 on this Bills secondary, why, even if Justin Fields isn't this prolific passer that Lamar Jackson is, I still think 60 yards is more than feasible for Garrett Wilson here. I'm gonna just drop another coin in a bucket here. Breece Hall over 18.5 receiving yards. I had him over 19.5 receiving yards in week 1. Soared over. Had about 38 receiving yards, if I believe that number is correct. Getting a 1-yard discount here in a game that they're going to be trailing. I understand Buffalo's a stiffer defense, but I'm going to take this all day. He is going to be the receiving back. I'm not really worried about Isaiah Davis. He had like 2 snaps, I think, week 1. So all the receiving work's going to go to Breece Hall. 18.5 yards, more than doable here in a game that they should be trailing. But yeah, I'm also on Buffalo here, laying the 6.5. I know MetLife is going to be rocking. They had a close game week 1, and Bills lost there last season, and Josh Allen has struggled against this Jets defense in the past. With all that being said, if this offense looks like a portion of what it did in week 1, they're going to have no problems winning this game by a touchdown. That's where my head's at here with Bills-Jets week 2.
That's a good prop. I think it's a no-brainer. Breece Hall is pretty much the second option there. They're going to be passing the ball a lot, and I like him to get involved in the passing game. So next up, we got my New York Giants against the Dallas Cowboys. Again, both teams trying to avoid the 0-2 start, 0-2 in the division to start as well. So the Cowboys are favored by 4.5. And this time, I'm going the Cowboys. You're also going the Cowboys. As much as it hurts, it's going to hurt me more if I miss again and trust the Giants to actually win a game or even cover in this case. Dallas, too many times over the last couple of years, for a long time, it feels like has really dominated the Giants. and I expect something similar. I just think that Andrew Thomas just got announced out as well. The line actually moved down. I think it was like 5.5 to start the week. Now we're at 4.5. So I'm feeling even better about this pick right now. And if the Giants win, I'll feel good about it too. So it's kind of a win-win for me. And then for my prop, I like Dak Prescott to get over 3.5 yards rushing. This is an interesting call here. Last week against the Eagles, he had 3 yards rushing on 1 carry. What's different this week? Well, he's playing the Giants, and I think the Giants are very vulnerable to rushing quarterbacks. At least in the past, that's been my experience. So I expect him to get one scramble there for a couple of yards and get a first down or something like that. So I think this is a good prop to look at. Zach, what about you? What's your pick for this game?
Yeah, I'm also on Dallas. As long as Russell Wilson is under center. See, I used our podcast name there, Jack. I'm not going to back the G-men, especially Dallas coming off a game that was winnable against Philly. Jalen Carter gets ejected for spitting on Dak Prescott. I don't know if Dak spit on him first, or regardless, let's keep the saliva in our mouths and play football. But yeah, Dallas should win this game, should go to 1-1 here. I don't feel comfortable betting on the Giants, just like I don't feel comfortable betting on the Jets. Just something about MetLife Stadium or East Rutherford. I don't know. But I'm going to take CeeDee Lamb to get in the end zone. I think you're getting plus 100 here against a weak Giants secondary who allowed Jaden Daniels to find whoever he wanted in the red zone. Debo got in. I think that it's just going to be a bounce back for CeeDee Lamb here with the drops in week 1, and I like him getting in the end zone. He caught a ball and was just short in week 1. I just think he's one of those guys who gets a touchdown every couple weeks. And if he didn't score week 1, facing a really weak secondary in the Giants, I like him to touch pay dirt here in week 2. And I like Dallas to cover. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Jackson Dart in this game if Russell Wilson really tries to look bad. It starts to look bad, excuse me. So we'll see. But yeah, I like the Cowboys here. Minus 4.5, CeeDee Lamb, ATD.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we stood on this podcast. I stood on business and called you out for having CeeDee Lamb as your number 1 wide receiver in PPR. I'm getting closer.
I'm up 1 week.
Closer. I've got a couple. I got a lot of CeeDee Lamb equity this season. Not as much Ja'Marr Chase. I still have Chase as 1, but CeeDee Lamb against the Giants. Come on, no brainer.
I mean, we're gonna get in a couple minutes here, Jack. We're gonna talk about Ja'Marr Chase against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So he may be in for a big day too. We'll see. But let's move on here to San Francisco, New Orleans, and this game, Jack. When we were looking at it a couple days ago, putting together our picks. To now, a lot has changed, and we had to kind of go back and revise here with Brock Purdy dealing with turf toe issues, going to be out multiple weeks per sources. Return of the Mac is real. Mac Jones is going to take this Niners team into New Orleans and try to get a W here. This is why I'm a little hesitant with the 49ers. I haven't seen Mac Jones since, a year ago. I don't know what this offense... This offense didn't look great against Seattle. They kind of found a way. You have no Purdy, no Kittle, still no Ayuk. Jawan Jennings is dealing with the AC and the shoulder issue. Probably going to play. It's just, even against as shitty of a team as the Saints, I'm going to take the Saints here, which now is +3. I don't trust Mac Jones to move the ball whatsoever. I like that the game's in New Orleans. The Saints didn't look great against the Cardinals, but they hung around. So, why can't they hang around against the backup quarterback? They hung around against Kyler Murray in an ascending offense in Arizona. I also like Rashid Shaheed over 39.5 receiving yards. In week 1, the targets were there, and he's a big catch guy, so I like him the opportunity here. I think the Niners defense is just going to be on the field a lot because Mac Jones early on, first, second quarter, first and half of the season, I could see multiple 3-and-outs. The Saints are going to stack the box. I still think Christian McCaffrey's going to have a big week, but the Saints are going to stack the box and circle McCaffrey and say, you know what, San Francisco, you know what? Let anyone else beat us on your team. We're gonna stick to CMC here. We're gonna have 2 linebackers kind of jump and spy him, especially in the receiving game. So I'm gonna take Rashid Shaheed, 39.5 receiving yards, and the Saints plus a field goal. Jack,
you know why they call them the San Francisco 49ers?
Why, Jack?
Because they have 49 injuries every year. Every year they're banged up.
Threshold 49.
49's over. That's how many injuries.
It's accurate.
Seems pretty accurate. That includes the coaching staff as well, because sometimes they're not making the best calls there. So this game, I'm going with the 49ers because I believe the Saints are that bad. They still got McCaffrey there. They still got a prop. I like Christian McCaffrey to go 0.5. Receiving used a lot. Last week he was used a lot as well. I think that he's gonna be the guy there with all the injuries. I put my money this week, but I'm willing to go all out on McCaffrey. So if you're gonna pick anyone, it's got to be the best player, right?
That's usually a good choice, especially if it's Christian McCaffrey, who, let's not forget, has the second best fantasy season ever with the Panthers in 2019. Moving on, New England going to Miami to play the Dolphins here, who we are praying will wake up, hopefully. If not, trade Tyreek Hill. Put him out of his misery and trade Tyreek Hill to the Steelers, the Chiefs, whatever. I don't know. Just please look better in week 2. It was just awful to watch in week 1. They got blitzed and destroyed by the Colts, and too much of a shock to me and Jack. I'm gonna back Miami here against the Patriots. Don't feel great about it as I do in week 1. I said this about the Dolphins week 1. I'm gonna say it in week 2. Not really rushing to take a Dolphins money line or spread. I'm trying to stick to player props here. I'm going to take Tyreek Hill over 64.5 receiving yards. If they don't get him the ball, he's gone. So that's probably the biggest ultimatum in football right now. They don't really get the ball, get him and 2 on a connection. McDaniel's gone. Tyreek Hill's gone. This team is competing for Arch Manning. So with that being said, I'm going to use this ultimatum and take Tyreek Hill over 64.5 receiving yards and hope that he, gets a big bomb, 40-yarder. Something like that. This isn't a game that I love betting-wise. Just in general, it's not really super enticing for me. But if I have to make a pick here, I'm going to go with the Cheetah against the Patriots. And Christian Gonzalez, I believe, is not playing. So it shouldn't be too difficult of a matchup. The Patriots gave up 300-plus passing yards to Geno Smith. If Trey Tucker could catch a 45-yard touchdown pass and get behind the defense, I'm positive Tyreek Hill can. I just am not positive that Tua can deliver an on-time accurate pass to Tyreek Hill in the end zone. But we'll see.
I do like this to be a game where we see a little more something from both offenses. Last week was a little disappointing on both sides. I think that New England feels like the stronger team this year. So I'm going with them to cover the 2.5 points. And I do like TreVeyon Henderson to get involved in the receiving game over 18.5 receiving yards as well. I think he had 6 catches last week. If he has anything similar this week, don't be shocked if he comes out with a big play and gets into the end zone or has like a 50-yard play or something like that. So I think TreVeyon's a good lookout, especially against this Dolphins defense that let up a lot of offense last week to the Colts.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. TreVeyon, 18.5, same number you're going to get Breece Hall at. These are guys who are, high-volume receivers when it comes to the running back position. Can't go wrong with the sub-20-yard receiving line. That could be one play. Just keep that in mind. Moving on. Cincinnati, Jacksonville. We're both on Cincinnati here, minus 3.5. They somehow snuck by the Browns in week 1 thanks to a missed field goal. A couple other things that helped. Defense actually looked good, so I know it's the Browns, and this goes back to my Joe Flacco pick being one of my favorites. If Cincinnati's defense can hold Joe Flacco, then maybe they can hold Trevor Lawrence. The Ravens could definitely hold Joe Flacco. But my prop here is going to be your guy, Jack. I think he's going to get in the end zone this week. Jamar Chase, anytime touchdown. You're going to get minus 130 on FanDuel and on most books around minus 120 to minus 130. Kind of similar to CeeDee Lamb. This is a guy who is a really good route runner in the red zone at the goal line, whether it be a quick slant, whether it be an out route to the sticks. He probably will get in a game where I think could be very high volume passing wise for the Bengals. This is a big week for Jamar Chase, for T. Higgins, for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's passing line here is at 271.5. That's the highest over-under passing line for any quarterback this week. So Vegas is expecting a high passing game for Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's throwing for 270-plus yards. Well, I'm going to get in on some of that and expect Jamar Chase to score a touchdown here. He could score from any part of the field. So kind of goes without saying. Jack, what do you like?
Like Cincinnati have a big day. I think, they're prone to these slow starts, but I think they're also in a position to really show what they have this game against a suspectful defense, like a defense I'm not too confident in Jacksonville, although they did show up last week against Carolina. I think Cincinnati is going to be able to pull away here fairly quickly, and I like Chase Brown to have over 17.5 rushing attempts. Last game, he did have all of the work, literally every single carry for Cincinnati. Okay. And again, if we're expecting maybe like a little bit of a bigger lead for Cincinnati, more offensive production. This game probably has a higher over/under. So I think Chase Brown is very capable for getting a lot of touches this week.
Yeah, got all the 100% of the work from a rushing standpoint week 1. I think the number is 21 carries. If he repeats that, would be cashing this bet. I definitely, that's an enticing bet for sure. Moving on, we have Seattle, Pittsburgh. We're both on Pittsburgh here to cover a field goal against the Seahawks. Although this is another one of those games where I'm not super confident in which team's going to win. Seattle, I thought, would beat San Francisco week 1. San Francisco kind of looked bad the entire game and found a way. So I could see a similar type of game here against Pittsburgh. With maybe our guy Chris Boswell being involved towards the end of the game. But I'm going to take Jonnu Smith over 3.5 catches here against Seattle. 6 targets in week 1, 5 catches. I think Aaron Rodgers is building a bit of rapport here with Jonnu Smith as opposed to Pat Freiermuth, and I'll kind of ride that. I think 3.5 is a good number. If you got, he had 5 receptions week 1 on 6 targets in a game against the Jets. That I know ended up being more pass heavy. But, I think it's just it's a low line for Jonnu Smith, and until I see him go under with a 2-3 reception game, I'm comfortable taking it here against Seattle. Jack, what do you like?
Yeah, I like that. Jonnu Smith, I expect now that we have a little bit more idea of the Pittsburgh offense, is going to have a decent role there. And I think he can be viable as a low-end tight end one in fantasy for those deeper leagues. And then, I like Pittsburgh. It's very close for me. I do think Boswell could play a factor, best kicker in the league. I'm highly stocked on Boswell in the leagues that still have kickers that unfortunately we still make that a part of fantasy once in a while. And I do have Zach Charbonnet over 42.5 rushing yards. We saw the distribution last week. He was used as the rushing back primarily. I think 42.5 is a good line. Charbonnet is a very talented rusher. I don't like Seattle's passing game. They didn't really utilize it that much. I think they're going to run the ball a lot with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. So I like Charbonnet to come in with the heavy rush usage this game and kind of show that he's going to be the RB1 there.
And I don't anticipate Mike Tomlin, I don't think in practice this week he was too happy with the amount of offense that they gave up to the Jets, especially in the air and on the ground.
Yeah, Breece Hall had a nice day.
And so did Garrett Wilson. So we'll see here with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker. I do think that they're going to run the ball a lot, and it's going to be, you're going to have that similar split. I don't think JSN is necessarily going to have 130 receiving yards like he did against.
It's very similar to Garrett Wilson, and there's the one target there. You could expect a similar game from JSN if they're given a high concentration of one guy. We saw it work last week with the Jets, so who knows? Seattle can replicate that.
Yeah, I think this will be a tougher matchup for JSN than week 1, but Garrett Wilson thrived in it. But yeah, you still have Jalen Ramsey, who had a nice hit on Garrett Wilson at the end of the game in week 1. Could be even more motivated here in week 2 to face Jackson Smith-Njigba. All right, moving on. Denver, Indianapolis, Daniel Jones, MVP Daniel Jones, I should say, now going to get a much realer test, even though the Dolphins were supposed to be respectable, but looked, to the Colts' credit, they made them look horrific. But this is going to be a real test in terms of a defense that he's going to face that's, the best defense in the league. Can Daniel Jones, this is the biggest question for me heading into week 2 of football. I think it's on everyone's kind of the top of their chalkboards. What's the biggest unknown going into this week? How is Daniel Jones going to play against this Denver defense? I'm looking at your prop here. You don't think they're going to be the same offense that they were in week 1, but I am going to take a Denver prop. I'm not going to take a Colts prop here until I see the Denver defense give up yards. The Titans completely struggled against them in week 1. Cam Ward, 112 passing yards. The leading receiver for the Titans had 29 yards, and it was Tony Pollard on one play. So this team is just really, really hard. They rally to the football. It's just a tough team to get yards on. So I'm going to take Troy Franklin over 32.5 receiving yards. I like how he was utilized in week 1 and hit this line. And I think that the Colts offer some receiving potential for guys like a Troy Franklin. You have Evan Ingram, who's going to play this week, coming off this little calf injury. There's risk for re-injury there. Cortland Sutton's going to be the main focus for the Indianapolis defense, so I could see Troy Franklin kind of sneaking in a couple big plays here and getting over 32.5 receiving yards. So, Jack, what do you got here? I know I hinted at your prop, but I'm going to let you give your formal explanation.
I want nothing to do with this game. You can tell. I can tell you. I switched my pick from Indianapolis to Denver like literally minutes before we got to this game. Not feeling confident either way. I just don't know enough about these two teams based on week one to want to put any money on this game. Denver at 2.5 points. They have such a strong defense that was kind of the main consideration there. But Indianapolis, looks strong, and who knows? This is a big wait and see thing for them. But I don't expect Daniel Jones to do anything close to what he did against a suspect Miami Dolphins defense. I have him at under 204.5 passing yards. I think he rarely touched 200 yards as a Giant, so it would really hurt. It would really, really hurt if he would do it for a second game as a new quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts. So hoping for my sanity as a Giants fan, we don't see something similar, and this isn't MVP Daniel Jones.
If somehow Indianapolis wins this game and Daniel Jones doesn't need to throw for 300 yards, he doesn't need to have this crazy 3-touchdown. If he leads the Colts to 2-0, a win against Denver here in week 2, I don't care if he throws a pick or not. There are going to be some serious questions around the league, especially coming from the Giants front office, about Daniel Jones. He was worth the money they paid him then. Ultimately, they should have kept him, but we'll see. Daniel Jones, hopefully he continues to prove everyone wrong, especially the Giants here in week 2. I'm rooting for him. It seems like everyone's rooting for him, minus you and the rest of the Giants fans. Everyone around the league, everyone I talk to, every friend I talk to, oh, Daniel Jones. Oh my God, can you believe Danny Dimes? It's the craziest thing ever. I'm like, not one of you are Colts fans. Like, no one's a Colts fan. And they're all like, oh, I can't wait for them to beat the Broncos. Oh, I can't wait till he wins. Like, they're like, comeback player of the year for Daniel Jones. I'm like, he played last year. But yeah, so we'll see. This is a big wait and see. Moving on.
We'll see good people suffer. That's all I like to say. Good Giants fans are hardworking, New York folks suffer from and have good times in football and not look back at 2011, 2007 too much.
But Jack, what people believe is that Daniel Jones was that good person suffering for years in that Giants offense, and now that he's thriving in Indianapolis, maybe they're just rooting for the good guy here. Maybe you're the bad guy. Maybe the fans that booed him out of MetLife are the bad guys. Okay, moving on here. What'd you say? Oh, there might be some tech difficulties on Jack's end, but let's move on. Okay, there we go. We're going to move off this Denver game. Carolina at Arizona. I'm on Arizona here to cover. Carolina just looks really, really bad in week 1. I hope Bryce Young figures it out, but until I see this offense really flourish for a full game, I mean, I expected Bryce Young to look, pretty steady against the Jaguars secondary in week 1, and he just couldn't get the Panthers back in the game to really be competitive. I'm going to take Kyler Murray over 214.5 passing yards. Failed to hit this number in week 1 in a game that they were winning the entire time. But I think Kyler Murray is going to be more efficient passing this week. I think this number is pretty low considering the receiving options that he has in Marvin Harrison and Trey McBride and the soft matchup against Carolina. I think he definitely could go over this line if the Carolina is any competitive. But if it's another game script like Trevor Lawrence had last week where he's stuck at 180 passing yards because the Panthers are scrapping a field goal every 3 drives together, well then that makes it tough. But I do think Carolina is going to at least stay somewhat competitive in this game to where Kyler Murray can kind of move with this offense in a normal fashion and get to 215 passing yards. Jack?
Yeah, I think that's a good call. I mean, I have Carolina in this game. I think the line of 6.5 is a little steep for my liking. I think Carolina has enough talent to keep in this game. Arizona didn't win by too many points against New Orleans, and I think Carolina's maybe a little bit of a better team. I do like McMillan to potentially have a good game. I like the Cardinals to win, though. I think it's going to be a win for the Cardinals, and I like James Conner over 2.5 receptions there. He's been used in a decent amount in the passing game in the past. Last week he had 4 receptions.
He had the receiving
touchdown. Murray doesn't utilize James Conner in that way, so I do think that is a good pick there.
Yeah, and he had that. Sorry, I had to cut you. I had to interrupt, but I was just saying he had that receiving touchdown too, which it was nice to see they have a little shovel play in the playbook for him to get him a couple catches. Super Bowl rematch, Philly, Kansas City. A little different than the Super Bowl matchup from last February, but I'm on the Chiefs here. You're on the Eagles. I understand the Eagles look good. I understand the Chiefs didn't look great. Xavier Worthy back in practice. Is not gonna play this week. He's doubtful for this week, but going forward as a Xavier Worthy owner, a little bit of a sidetrack. He's in the brace. He's already doing drills. This is much better than I thought it would be, to be quite frank with you. I thought, with the shoulder dislocation, I thought at least 4 to 6 weeks, and never 100% for the rest of the season. And it looks like he avoided the amount of damage I thought he could have. It was everyone saw the play. It was a rough shot to the shoulder from a big guy in Travis Kelce, and he didn't see him coming at all, so couldn't really brace himself or tense up or anything. So I thought there was a lot more damage in that shoulder just in that dislocation. But Xavier Worthy should be playing week 3. I believe he's on pace to play week 3. But sidetrack over. I'm on KC here. Even without Worthy, I think that they're going to bounce back from week 1 loss against the Chargers, who looked great in Brazil. Andy Reid had a long week to come back from Brazil on Friday and really prep to play the Eagles again. They're going to have that bitter taste in their mouths from their Super Bowl loss last season, and I expect this O-line to play better and to not let Patrick Mahomes get sacked as many times as he did in the Super Bowl. My prop for this game, with the Chiefs kind of being competitive, potentially I see winning this game, I'm going to take A.J. Brown over 5.5 receptions. Huge bounce back spot here. I understand it's a bit of a public bet. You see A.J. Brown only had a catch for 9 yards, and you're like, oh, he's going to explode in week 2. That's kind of like what everyone's thinking, so the line could be higher generally. But I'm getting plus 124 on 6 catches for A.J. Brown. Usually his line's, minus 130, minus 140 for 6 catches, and sometimes in games like this, his line's at 6.5 catches. So I'm going to take the value here. I expect them to give him a couple easy ones kind of to make amends with the lack of usage he got in week 1. So that should allow him to get to the 6 catch number much easier. Jack?
Yeah, I mean, we saw what the Chargers wideouts did against the Chiefs defense. They were used a lot and were able to get a lot of receptions as well. I do like the Eagles in this game. Based on what we saw last year, nothing's changed too much for these teams. The main difference right now is Xavier Worthy's not going to play. So that's a blow for this game at least. And the Eagles, the Chiefs had a little longer break, but the Eagles had an even longer break playing on Thursday opening night. So it's a close one, but I'm going to go the Eagles, go with what we saw a couple months ago and kind of go from there. And then for my prop, I like Hollywood Brown over 5.5 receptions. We see what kind of happens when the offense is kind of diminished, and when Hollywood Brown's been in for the Chiefs, he's gotten a lot of targets and receptions. So I think that, like we saw last game, he could be used often and in short work as well as some long shots as well.
I like it. Once Worthy went down, he became the immediate wide receiver 1. So I definitely like it. Moving on, Atlanta, Minnesota. We're both on the road team here, which is rare. We're going to take the Falcons to kind of get to 1-1 here against a Vikings team that had a nice comeback against the Bears in week 1. I think with Darnell Mooney, Drake London, both good to go. Bijan's going to, play a role. This we saw in week 1, this Vikings defense is a very strong defense. Brian Flores has these guys running around like crazy, getting to the quarterback. The highest blitz rate team in football, I believe they are the highest, if not one of, under Brian Flores. But I like Penix's ability to stand in the pocket and really throw darts. I think that this Atlanta Falcons team is designed maybe to flourish in this type of matchup against a team that's going to blitz a lot. You have guys who, Penix is a great, short, quick thrower, especially to guys who run good short routes. Like Drake London is a quick slant guy, quick out guy who can kind of eat PPR-wise. In a game like this, and I think that the Falcons can hang around and get it done. I'm going to take TJ Hawkinson here, though. With all that being said, over 37.5 receiving yards. I think that line is just pretty low. This game's going to be competitive regardless, and he only had 3 for 15 in week 1. I believe J.J. McCarthy's going to look his way now that he's comfortable a bit more, has a win under his belt. I like this number, 37.5. I think you're getting a crazy discount from the dud he had last week. You're getting like a 5-6 yard discount. He's usually in the mid-40s. So I'm going to roll the dice with TJ Hawkinson here over 37.5 and a Falcons slim victory.
I like that. There's a good discount based on where the line was last week. And you expect the Vikings to pick up a little bit closer to where they were offensively towards the second half of last game. But I do like Atlanta as well. This is the battle of the 2 second-year rookies pretty much. Both guys didn't play a ton last year, and it's an interesting matchup for sure. I think I like the Atlanta team a little better. I like what they showed a little more throughout the game, and they're also getting 3.5 points. So if it's a close matchup, that's kind of the leading decision maker there. I do like Michael Penix to get over 9.5 rushing yards. We saw him got the rushing touchdown. John got rushed the ball a decent amount. I think he had around 20-something rushing yards last game. So this line looks favorable to me at 9.5. I think that I like these small rushing lines for these quarterbacks where they can pick it up in pretty much one scramble or something like that. I think the game right now suits quarterbacks to run a lot. Maybe these lines are a little lower because of the first couple weeks of the season. Coaches are not telling their quarterbacks to be as aggressive to get the first down and run all over the field to avoid injury and stuff like that. But in this case, I think this line is too promising to pass up.
Yeah, a couple really good points there. About capitalizing on these lines that are potentially lower in the beginning of the season in terms of quarterback rushing. You don't with the potential injuries every time a quarterback scrambles. I like this Michael Penix pick a lot, especially in this matchup. The Vikings being that high blitz team, it's going to force Michael Penix, if he doesn't stand in the pocket and get the ball out quick in those snaps that he doesn't do that, he's going to be forced to flush out of the pocket and make plays with his legs. So I think it's a good number. I think it's a good bet. Moving on, 2 Monday night games. It'll be a super fun Monday. Tampa Bay, Houston. I'm on the Texans here to bounce back. I'm a big bounce back guy this week. I feel like I've said that a lot. Houston O-line looked terrible in week 1. CJ Stroud under duress the entire game, was forced out of the pocket numerous times, was forced to get the ball out quick. Did get the ball out quick towards the end of the game to Dare Ogunbowale, who fumbled. That cost them the game. My pick for this game, along with Houston, is going to be Mike Evans under 67.5 receiving yards. I know what everyone's going to say. What are you doing? It's Mike Evans. It's prime time. I still can see him getting in the end zone maybe, but this line's just too high against this type of matchup with his age. You got Derek Stingley, who's probably going to shadow him for most of the game. You got Kamari Lassiter on the other side. This is a really good. You got Petrie. This is a really, really good secondary. So I'm going to take this under here, 67.5. Mike Evans, 51 receiving yards in week 1 against AJ Terrell. That's usually a matchup he does better on in previous years in that divisional matchup. So maybe this is the year he doesn't get 1K. I hate to be that guy, but he barely scraped and got it last year. This is a really, really tough matchup against a really good Houston secondary. 67.5 receiving yards is just a lot of yards. So I'm going to take the under here. Jack, what do you got?
Yeah, if we look at that how things worked last week with the Texans defense and how they played the Rams there, Puka was able to line up in the slot a bit. That's why he kind of feasted a little bit more, and Adams was shadowed by Stingley a little bit. So I think similarly we kind of have the comparables of Evans kind of staying on the outside and Egbuka kind of moving around all over the place on the inside a little bit. So I think maybe if anyone's going to have a big game there, maybe look to Egbuka more than Evans this game. I do like Tampa Bay just in general. I think they're a better team. I'm worried about that Houston offensive line right now. I think you make a good case that this is a must-win for Houston, and I think they have the capability to come back here. It's a close one for me, but I just think that the offense for Tampa Bay is just so much stronger right now than Houston. And then for my prop, I like CJ Stroud to have over 8.5 rushing yards. Very similar. I like the QB rushing yards this week. I think that's my third so far. And CJ ran a bunch last week as well. Despite not a lot of offense from the team, the offensive line is just collapsing all over the place, and CJ Stroud needs to do some things with his legs every once in a while. So if you get one play like that, gets 10 yards, first down, you get the line covered there. 8.5 I think is reasonable. Again, I like the line. So that's kind of the reasoning there.
Yeah, I believe he had 38 rushing yards in week 1, and that much of that goes credited to the offensive line losing on the line of scrimmage and forcing CJ Stroud to get out of the pocket, scramble a bit. So again, it's another spot that I like. I just think in terms of the game, I think Houston's defense home opener, they're going to be fired up. Will Anderson, my sleeper DPOY candidate this year, had a big week 1, had 2 sacks in week 1. I think this defense is going to be flying around and to give Tampa Bay a harder time than they had in Atlanta. So I think the Houston defense is going to win them this game, if anything. But yeah, I like the CJ Stroud pick here. Moving on to the second capper.
I'll say, interestingly, I've seen some contradictory stats about the offensive line, and the amount of time CJ Stroud had in the pocket last week was not as bad as maybe we were perceiving. Still, I think just based on what we saw last year, I'm not too high on the offensive line.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's a good point. They did. The offensive line didn't pass the eye test, but maybe they were giving him more time than I was imagining. But no receiving work for Nico Collins. Maybe it's a combination of a bit of the O line struggle and the lack of receiver depth without Christian Kirk. Jaden Higgins didn't look great. Had like 32 yards, but left some food on the table there. And Nico Collins, they really need him to be that alpha. But I like them to win here. Good night, second doubleheader here. Chargers, Vegas, great divisional matchup. Chargers looking like they're going to steamroll Vegas based on how they looked against the Chiefs last week. But Vegas had a nice win against New England as well. But I'm on the Chargers here. They look like a team that can compete now in the AFC. I don't know what it is, but they are rallying behind Justin Herbert. This defense is playing really hard for him, and I think they're just a flat-out better team at home against Vegas. Vegas has a lot to prove. They had a nice start to proving that in week 1, but I'm going to be on the Chargers here. And anytime I'm getting Ladd McConkey at 5.5 receptions, I feel like I just have to take it. I took it in week 1. It hit in Kansas City. He had 6 catches against Kansas City. Now he has a little bit of a softer matchup against Vegas here. He's just always going to be targeted by Justin Herbert. I know they have Quentin Johnston and Keenan Allen, but the game in Brazil is honestly making me feel even better about this pick with Ladd McConkey, because even in a game where Quentin Johnston can have 2 touchdowns, Keenan Allen can have 7 catches, Ladd McConkey's still going to have 6 catches. I don't think Quentin Johnston or Keenan Allen are going to be as good as they were in week 1. They'll still be relevant, and they're good receivers, but I think old reliable right now in this offense is young reliable, and Ladd McConkey, second-year player here out of Georgia. That's my pick. Jack, what do you got?
That's a really good line at 5.5, especially as you described it last week. The situation kind of worked out where maybe it's like the least favorable situation where they're spreading the ball around a lot. So I think 5.5 is a good line there. I also like the Chargers. It feels like a very reasonable line at 3. They're on the road here, but I do expect them to just be too much for the Las Vegas Raiders to handle. And for that reason, I also have Hampton at over 56.5 rushing yards. I liked what I saw last week from Hampton. He looked like a very capable back there, and I think he's going to get a large portion of the work there and be able to make some more of it this week against the Raiders defense, which looked pretty good against the run, holding the Patriots down. But I think that they're going to not stack the box and put some extra defenders on those very talented wide receivers and see what Hampton can do here. So I think Hampton's going to have a strong day.
Yeah, I like the game. I like the game script too for Marion Hampton. I could see him getting into the end zone as well. If this is a game that the Chargers are leading, Hampton's going to be used, especially down the stretch, as the chain mover. So that's kind of the run through for week 2 here. Our best bets, our leans in terms of each game. We are excited to learn a lot more here in week 2 than we did in week 1, because obviously we have a small sample size now, but with every week the sample size grows and grows, and we're able to analyze it even better. Jack, any closing remarks before we head into our second football Sunday?
No, just keep going at it, guys. Fantasy football is a frustrating sport at times, but also a really rewarding sport. So we'll call it a sport, a game. So we'll see what happens in week 2. But enjoy the good times, enjoy the bad times. Either way, it's a fun time. So have a good one.
Start Roma Dunze. Bye, guys.